Raspberry Pis are little computers that run the Linux operating system, and one of the biggest questions I get is, can it run Windows? Well, although this may be considered somewhat cheating, one of the simplest ways to make a Raspberry Pi run Windows is to use it as a thin client. So here's all you need to know about setting up a Raspberry Pi thin client. Get alerts when new Raspberry Pi tidbits are ready for your consumption by subscribing and ringing that notification bell. Basically, a thin client is a small computer, in this case a Raspberry Pi, that allows you to use the resources of a remote computer as if you were sitting in front of it. It's ironic because this is actually how computing started. You had a terminal computer that was basically just a monitor, keyboard, network connection, and then you had a centralized computer that did all the processing called a mainframe. So as it seems, the further we go into the future, the more we get from the past. Alright, let's go. The first thing that you're going to need for this to work is a Windows computer to remote into. If you're still running Windows 7, that should work fine. And if you're running Windows 10 Pro, that should work as well. But if you have Windows 10 Home Edition, that unfortunately doesn't have Remote Desktop installed. But luckily, you can find a link in the video description to a workaround that should get it running for you. In Windows, press the Windows and R keys on the keyboard to bring up the Run dialog box. Then type System Properties Advanced, all one word, to bring up the System Properties window. Then under the Remote tab, make sure Allow Remote Connections to this computer is selected. Now, most issues with Remote Desktop involve the Windows firewall, so let's make sure that's opened up. So go back to the Run dialog box and type in control-firewall.cpl. Once the window opens, select Allow an app or feature through Windows Firewall and then scroll down to Remote Desktop and make sure it's checked for at least the private network, assuming you're using a private home network. It's not really recommended to be enabled for public networking unless you know what you're doing. Now, if you're connecting through a router, you'll also have to make sure port forwarding is set up properly on your router as well. Finally, you need to get the IP address of the computer. So again, from the Run dialog box, type CMD to launch the command line. Then type ipconfig, and this is going to reveal the IP address of your computer. So make note of it because we're going to need it later. Okay, now let's break out our Raspberry Pi. This is a Pi project after all. You'll need to have it set up with Raspbian, a monitor, keyboard, and mouse. And you can refer back to my previous video if you need help doing that. Now, there are several different applications that would allow us to connect our Pi to the Windows computer, but I've narrowed it down to one, FreeRDP. You can install it like this, and then it's really simple to use. All you have to do is type xFreeRDP and then the IP address of your computer and hit enter. It's going to prompt you for the remote computer's username and domain, which if you're not connected to one, you can just leave that blank, and then your password, and boom, you're connected. So now this is where it gets fun. FreeRDP allows you to customize the command with whatever you want using something called switches, and you can find a list of the FreeRDP command line switches on their GitHub wiki. If you're not familiar, command line switches are characters that you can add to your command line to enable different functions. For instance, to automatically input the username and password, you can use /u: for username and /pi: for password. And then whenever you hit enter, you'll automatically be connected to your remote computer without it prompting for a login. Of course, there are obvious security implications for doing that, but if that's something you want to do, that's how you do it. You can read through all the different switch options and add whatever works for you. I'm going to go with these switches, /F for full screen, /sound for forwarding sound to the Raspberry Pi, /home drive for mapping the Pi's home drive, and then /drive:/USB and then the path to my USB drive to mount my USB drive to the remote computer. Hitting enter is going to connect the computer's full screen and forwards any audio to the Pi. And if you go to this PC in a folder, you'll see the shared home drive and USB drive that you can read and write to. And then to exit full screen mode, just hit Control-Alt-Enter and that will take you back to your Pi. Once you have the commands configured to your liking, I think it'd be cool to just auto start the script whenever the Pi boots up so that it goes straight to the Windows desktop. So if you wanted to do that, what you need to do is make a script that's executable. Start by copying your script and then creating a new file called rdp.sh, and then add this text to the top of it and paste your command underneath. Save it, and then we can make it executable by giving ourselves execute permissions. Now we can create an auto start directory in the config folder and then create a desktop file for our remote desktop command. Inside of that file, add this text and have it point to the script file that we created. Now you can reboot your Pi, and whenever it's done rebooting, you should be at your Windows desktop. So when I was doing research for this, I found that there were a lot of different ways to connect your Pi to a Windows computer. So I want to hear what software and what methods you prefer. Just let me know in the comments below. You can click here to watch more videos like this, and please be sure to support me by liking, subscribing, and sharing with all your friends. Until next time, keep tinkering.